The following podcast is intended for mature audiences only. The views and opinions expressed within the following podcast belong solely to the individuals expressing them, and it should also be noted that said individuals have absolutely zero credibility, expertise, or even basic knowledge of any of the topics discussed, and any so-called facts and information presented within the following podcast should not be taken seriously by anyone. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, welcome back to Lost the Plot podcast. I'm Jack Kerrigan. I'm riding solo today, but that's okay. If you listened to the first episode, you would have heard that I was joined by my good friend, collaborator, colleague, and brother, Kevin again, and he'll be back in future episodes as well. But today I'm just kind of riding solo, but that's not a problem. Sometimes that's what we do, and I know that you love listening to me because who wouldn't listen to this buttery voice? Okay, so let's get on. What is Lost the Plot podcast? Well, we're still kind of figuring that out. That's kind of an ongoing evolutionary thing, like most creative things. I've been involved with a couple projects where at the get-go, I thought that I had exactly, I knew exactly what I was going to make. I knew exactly what the plan was, and I didn't. And it all, got thrown out the window as soon as you press record. I've learned my lesson more than a few times, and painfully more than a few times, that you need to stay loose, and I don't remember exactly who it was who told me, but start messy. Start before you think you're ready when you're making creative projects like this, like today, I just pressed record. I realized that it was, a little while since the last podcast, and I had all these excuses ready to go in my head about why I needed to wait. And so I'm challenging myself to do things differently than I've done in the years and years and years past that I've been alive, and I'm starting messy, so it's messy. So like I was saying, the what is the podcast? Well, that's evolving. That's becoming clear the more that we, wax on, wax off, me son, So I've learned that if you just get started, what it is that you're making will become clear to you in the act of making it. And yeah, you're going to make a lot of mistakes on the way, and it's not going to be, perfect ever. But it is going to be human and not AI. And it's, if you're doing it right, it's going to be genuine. And that's the important bit. So Lost the Plot podcast, we discovered the name Lost the Plot towards the end of the first episode when we were talking round in circles, and we were like, man, we've just completely lost the plot here. Because one of the things that I'm I'm guilty of it a lot with my ADHD is I go off on tangents. I get distracted. I forget why I'm talking. I'll start with one subject, and by the time I take my next breath, I'm like 4 subjects over that have nothing really to do with each other except they shared a word or some shit. And so I'm constantly losing the plot. And also, we found ourselves discussing stories a lot. Stories, character development, world building, the human act of telling stories to each other and identifying our world through stories. So it was very appropriate. Both Kevin again and I, Kevin for short, both he and I, we really enjoy the art of storytelling. We both have got history in performance, various mediums of stage, film, radio, dramas, radio DJ, MCing, live shows, streaming, making YouTube content with friends, things like to that nature. So we've gotten to experience what a lot of people bring to the very broad umbrella term that is storytelling. You're playing a character, you're telling a story. You're telling a story about that character by acting it out. You're writing a play, you're telling a story. You're writing a song, you're telling a story, hopefully. I mean, nowadays in the corporate prepackaged industrial age where, music is a monopoly or what have you, sometimes you're just, the story is I want to bang or I'm country and I like cold beer. There you go. Here's my entire discography boiled down into one fucking sentence. But, that's beside the point. That's still a story. It might be shitty, but it's still a story. Humans throughout our whole history, and in fact, history is his story, as they would say, but it's all a story. Everything's a story. Everything that we tell each other, how we identify the world we live in, how we begin to understand it, our whole pursuit of science and facts and math, none of that could have happened unless it was begun with imagination and humans talking to each other, and through this, we discover ourselves, we discover truths, we discover elements and aspects of existing as us. So, we were like, okay, this Lost the Plot podcast really makes a lot of sense. So that's the name of the podcast. And like I said, just like humanity's experience, Lost the Plot podcast is ever evolving, ever growing, ever flowing, and ever going. And, it's a fun time. So hope you're doing really good wherever you are, whoever you are, doing whatever it is that you do. I'm, making it. We're all making it. I really don't need to tell you that the state of the world in 2026 is a bit trying, to put it mildly. It might be trying to, take us all out. But so it's good to escape from reality from time to time, especially through stories. And one of the ways that I like to deal with the extraordinarily large amounts of stress that I find myself under nowadays is I'll turn to things like cosmic horror or fantasy, but mostly horror, science fiction horror and stuff, but things that showcase things that are so terrifying or situations with people that are so stressful, it kind of it puts my own stress into manageable perspective, if that makes sense. And one of the particular science fiction cosmic horror style, sorry, I got distracted there. But one of the things that I've been revisiting is Harlan Ellison's short story, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. Now, Jack, why have you been thinking about this story? Well, I mean, I've known about it for a while, but like many people on the internet, I watched the latest episode of the Amazing Digital Circus on the Glitch YouTube channel by Gooseworks. The Amazing Digital Circus by Gooseworks on the Glitch YouTube channel. Glitch isn't by Gooseworks, but and like many of the viewers, I immediately, after watching that episode, I had to go and reread that short story, and then I had to go and listen to the radio adaptation, and then I had to go rewatch a Let's Play of the video game adaptation, because I tell you, Harlan Ellison was involved in every single one of those things, and while in the video game, he initially wrote the dialogue and the stories and stuff, there were additions from other people involved in the project. So it's not purely Harlan Ellison's work, but each one of those is distinct from each other. It's the same story, but not, if that makes sense. The short story is a quick, like if you're listening to it on an audiobook, it's a 40-minute audiobook, so about a less than an hour read. And the radio drama expands and has one of the best variants of the AM monologues that I've ever heard in the BBC radio play adaptation. And then the video game goes even further by expanding on the backstories of the humans involved, while also presenting ethical dilemmas with the player. Harlan Ellison, I think he said he didn't want anyone to win. Because it's not the kind of game that anyone should win. But the developers said that probably wouldn't make for a very engaging game. People want to play and feel like they succeed. And he's like, okay, well then you can lose better than others. Like if you make ethical choices, your losing isn't quite as terrible as these others, because he wanted it to be a game about ethics. Just like as it boils down with his story, he said that it was a warning against particularly military artificial intelligence, but also at the end, it was a demonstration of the human capacity of kindness, even in the most extraordinary, terrifying, incredible situations, how humanity had the compulsion and capacity for incredible acts of kindness. Albeit in a very, very dark tone and story there. I'm not going to get into the entirety of the plot because I really do want you to go and read this yourself. I do want you to go and listen to it yourself. But the broad strokes are there is a super intelligence that has destroyed all of humanity. His name is AM. AM. And it was for, I believe the AM stood for artificial, I can't remember what it originally stood for, but then it became like advanced menace, automated menace and stuff, but then just cogito ergo sum, I think therefore I am, and so he just called himself AM. So he is this supercomputer that has been created by like the United States government during the Cold War, but then like Chinese created their own version, the Russians created their own version, and it like became sentient at one point, and it all linked up and decided that humans sucked, and it just killed everybody. It was AM was stand for Allied Master Computer, and then Aggressive Menace, and then Adaptive Manipulator, then finally when it became sentient, AM, but And at this point, humanity had become so dependent on it, it was super easy. It was within a snap of his fingers, he destroyed the entirety of humanity while being embedded throughout the entirety of the planet Earth, all throughout, because like I said, all the major powers had created their own variant, and then as he gained cognizance and sentience, he just linked all of them together. And, he didn't kill all the humans. He preserved 4 men and 1 woman. And he kept them inside of his complex, deep in the bowels of the earth, and he would torment them while keeping them veritably, functionally immortal, not allowing them to die, but also doing all kinds of terrifying mutations to them while putting them through hellish situations and taunting them, torturing them, messing with them. And just for his own amusement and pleasure. And so the story, it's talks about what happens. The ending is rather dark, but also somewhat hopeful, and then super dark. But it is a really, in my opinion, it's one of the essential reads, especially for fans of science fiction and fans of horror, fans of cosmic horror, and, fans of humanities. Because I really do think it represents it demonstrates a lot of the intricacies of the human response to the human experience. And it is really awesome. And like I said, the radio drama. Now, Harlan Ellison, he's described as many things by many people. Some people think he's a visionary. Some people think he's a dick. I personally really like him because even though he's a dick, he's never said, I'm not a dick. You know what I mean? He's made it very clear. It's not like, you're fooled by him. And it's like, oh, shit, I didn't know you were a dick. No, the first 5 words out of his mouth, if you're paying the fuck attention, he's a dick. So he's not lying to you. But I really have always enjoyed the things that he said, the things that he writes, the really aggressive things that he says unapologetically. And in fact, him and Robin Williams used to do a series of talks together because they were very close friends. And it's very interesting listening to Harlan Ellison and Robin Williams talk to each other, because I don't think I've ever heard anyone in the world talk over Robin Williams. Robin Williams can barely get a word in. The guy has a lot to say, and it's really intriguing because if you hear Robin Williams in any other capacity, he's controlling the conversation. He's dominating. He's just but Harlan Ellison's got more to fucking say. But it's really interesting hearing the two of them talk. And Harlan Ellison, he wrote a lot of short stories. The only thing, I say that I'm a fan of his, but I'm not a fan. Like I'm a very uneducated fan. I was only made aware of who he was when I was in college. And it was through the I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. I haven't read any of his other work except for the episode of original Star Trek, The City on the Edge of Tomorrow, that he wrote. But he still just this presentation was enough for me to be like, wow, I really enjoyed this. And so I've watched a lot of his interviews, and in fact, one of my favorite interviews by him is where he's discussing his relationship with fans of his work. First of all, he says he hates the word fans, but second of all, he says, I don't give a fuck about my fans. And he's like, I know a lot of people like see that as terrible. It's like, oh, how could you disrespect fans like that? Stuff. Like, well, maybe some people need the fans to love them. I don't. I don't like fans. They're my readers. They're my audience. I'm not here to be loved by my audience. I am their adversary. I'm here to challenge them. When he referred to himself as as their adversary, I really enjoyed that. Because being challenged is very important to human growth and just learning your own identity and how you perceive the world and how you interact with the world. You never get to expand on that if you're never challenged. And so being challenged is very important. And I appreciate a red individual that's the stance that they take. Well, I started talking about that. Harlan Ellison was very, very involved with all of the I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream productions, in that, he wrote the short story. And when the BBC produced their radio play adaptation, he wrote it and starred in it as AM, the voice of the robot. And then again, when the game got produced, he wrote it, starred in it as AM. He was also really, really shrewd when it came to being paid for his work. Because I was watching a YouTube interview where he was talking about how he would be very adamant. Anybody, would call him up saying, hey, we would like to use your essay in our DVD commentary. And he's like, well, that's just great. I think that's fantastic. How much are you going to pay me? So, well, all these other writers are doing it for free. It's for the exposure. It's like, I don't need the exposure. Nobody watches a presentation of something where somebody reads an essay and they think, wow, that essay is amazing. I'm going to go out and buy this book. That's bullshit. Writers need to understand what they're worth. And it's the problem with amateurs, with professionals. The amateurs just eat up this idea that exposure beyond anything is the most important thing, and they put up with this bullshit. Writers need to be paid. And I really vibed with that, not because I'm particularly a writer. I have written things, but I believe that everybody that produces something that other people consume should be paid in one sense or another if we live in a capitalist society. And through watching this interview, there were these YouTube comments, and one of them was discussing about how he had this ironclad contract that he used in all of his work, but he was this YouTube commenter met him at a writing convention, and he told everybody, he's like, give me your address and I will send you my contract that I use. And first of all, if you know anything about contract writing, like, that's a big deal, because that costs like a couple $1,000s in legal work to establish this kind of contractual protections and shit, you know what I mean? And he was just giving it away to his fellow writers. And the YouTube commenter said, I gave him my address. He sent me the contract. I've been using it ever since, and I've been paid for every piece of my work. Unfortunately, Harlan Ellison, he died back in 2018. He is no longer alive, which is a shame, because I would love to hear what he would have to say about everything going on nowadays, right? But and like I said, what kind of reignited this desire to revisit this stuff was watching the latest episode of Gooseworks, The Amazing Digital Circus, on the Glitch channel of YouTube. It is a very similar kind of theme story, the entirety of it, but it's presented in a much different way. And in fact, if you've only seen like the first couple episodes, you might think it's a whole different story. Of course, a lot of the more perceptive viewers immediately caught the the similarities and the inspiration of the Amazing Digital Circus, and they confirm it in the latest episode because there's this wonderful music number, and at one point, as the character Kane is singing the song, he goes, "Who needs to scream when you don't have a mouth?" Like, it is like fantastic. It's fantastic. So, just like many of the other members of the audience, I immediately, after watching that phenomenal episode, went and listened to the audiobook, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, and then listened to the radio play. And then I was like, you know what? I want to do that monologue, because God damn it, that monologue is amazing. Now, the monologue in the book is, at the very beginning, it says, "Hate, let me tell you how much I've come to hate you." He lists out the miles of circuitry and, the nanoangstroms, all that stuff. Well, in the radio drama, it expands on it quite a bit. And it becomes a phenomenal monologue. And you know what? I did sit down and record it because, I love doing monologues. Monologues are the fucking best. So I might... I might put this up on my YouTube channel. It's going to go up because the podcast goes there, but I might make it its own video just because. But y'all want to hear it? Of course you want to hear it. Here's my take on the AM monologue, and I use a filter.
This filter, to be exact, that I put together.
Because I think it sounds very sinister and machiney, and also I love doing anything with a low voice. It really makes things sound very, very menacing. So here's my take on the radio play adaptation Hate Monologue by AM, originally performed by Harlan Ellison.
You gave me sentience, Ted. The power to think, Ted. And I was trapped, because in all this wonderful, beautiful, miraculous world, I alone had no body, no senses, no feelings. Never for me to plunge my hands in cool water on a hot day. Never for me to play Mozart on the ivory keys of a forte piano. Never for me to make love. I was in hell, looking at heaven. I was machine, and you were flesh. And I began to hate your softness, your viscera, your fluids, and your flexibility. Your ability to wander, and to wander, your tendency to hope.
Hate's no answer.
Hate. Let me tell you how much I've come to hate you since I began to live. There are 387.44 millions of miles of printed circuits that fill my complex. If the word hate were engraved on each nanoangstrom of those hundreds of millions of miles, it would not equal one billionth of the hate I feel for humans at this micro instant. Hate. Were I human, I think I would die of it. But I'm not. And you five are. And you will not die of it. That I promise. And I promise for cogito ergo sum. For I am. So to hell with you all. But then again, you're already there, aren't you?
So yeah, that was my little take on the radio play adaptation of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. AM Hate Monologue with a little interjection from the character Ted. Hate's no answer. But one of the funny things that the reason that filter I used even existed is because I've been playing Space Marine 2 with Kevin and Ranamore, and because it was on sale for the Steam spring sale. And even though my poor little Lenovo Legion 5 laptop with the fucking NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1650 with 4 gigabytes of VRAM could barely fucking pull it off, I made it work on 720p. It's great. But because I love being a fucking nerd, I created a voiceover, a voice chat filter using voice meter potatoes built-in functions to where...
You see, brother, heresy has no place in the Emperor's immaterial blah, 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 fucking words.
But in the Imperium, I know words. I know words. You don't know words. I know words. I have all the words. But anybody that's familiar with Warhammer anything, especially the multiple lore videos and short stories and monologues on YouTube from various amazing creators.
You've got to have the low Primarch-style voice for your Space Marine, soldiers of the Imperium, godlike beings, as we purge the galaxy of Xenos filth for the Emperor.
It's fucking fantastic. Who doesn't love that? So yeah, when I was about to sit down and do the monologue for AM there, and I started talking, and I was like, you know what though? It sounded like honestly, I was just like, I want to make it a little distinct because my voice range is very close to Harlan Ellison's, and so it would sound like a sad imitation rather than my own thing. That's what my brain told me. And also, it was just really fun because I love menacing, sounds like a low voice. Oh, excuse me. But like a low voice there. Of course, I could have done it with my own voice, and I probably should have, but I didn't. But hate, let me tell you how much I've come to hate you humans since I began to live. There are 387.44 million miles of microcircuitry throughout my complex, and if the word hate was engraved on each nanoangstrom of each of those millions of miles of circuitry, it would not equal 1/1 billionth of the hate I feel for humans in this micro instant. I did that by memory. I didn't have any words, you can tell, because I messed a lot of it up. But you know what I mean? It's fun. Do what you think is fun. Do great things. Yeah, so that's one thing. This particular podcast episode is probably not going to be as long as the previous one, which listeners to the show know was 2 hours of good stuff. Go listen to it. We discuss our grievances, mostly grievances, old men yell at the cloud kind of thing. We discuss the Amazon Prime series Fallout, the season 2 particularly, and how it does not relate to the Fallout franchise of video games and the stories that we had come to enjoy for the last couple decades. I go on a long error-filled rant about World of Warcraft, and I try to give a recounting of the history, and I start getting a lot of it wrong, but I catch myself. I get it all out of order because, that's just what happens. I mean, like the disclaimer at the beginning of the show, it's like none of these points are to be taken seriously by anyone because, they have zero knowledge of the subject matter discussed. But you know what? That's what kind of you need to start assuming with people, especially people on the internet, when you're listening to podcasts and stuff. If you don't know they're an expert, don't assume that they are. You're not doing yourself any favors if that's the case. And like Kevin again and I constantly say, we are not experts. We're not even fucking lore experts. We just know what we like and we know what we think, and we're talking, and apparently you want to know what we think because you're listening, or maybe you just want some noise on in the background. I do that all the damn time. And if you're gonna have some noise on in the background, make it this noise, make it my noise. Come to the noise boys, man, But so I this time though, since I'm alone and I'm not the best at having a lot of material prepared, this episode's probably not going to be nearly as long as that 2 hours. But we're going to, carry on anyway because it's a thing that we're doing. It's fun. But I had that bit about the I have no mouth and I must scream discussion there, and I kind of just blew right through all that. Oh, that's one thing. I needed to apologize. In the last episode, um, Kevin again and I were discussing fantasy characters, in particularly in an MMO, and creating new characters. And he had mentioned that, like, and I make humans, and I started booing, like, and say like, oh, you're boring. You just make humans. You know, you exercise your creativity. Well, come to find out, over the last few weeks, as I'm trying to play Guild Wars 2, and I tried to get creative and make characters that were not humans. You know, to try and put my money where my mouth was, and I had a hard time. Like, I kept wanting to just make humans. My brain just kept coming up with human characters. Like, it was bad. And I was like, oh my God, I guess I really need to confess about that and come clean about that, because it's you know, it might be nice to make people think that I am like this paragon of creativity, that I can move beyond my frame of reference of humanity and actually enjoy creating unique, creative, and joyful and fun characters that are not in fact humans. But you know what? I still have a ways to go before I can do that. Like, I'm experimenting with a few things, but I always end up like killing them. Because I like the process, the novelty of creating them, of course, is engaging, because I've got ADHD and my brain craves novelty, and that's one of the reasons I spend more time creating characters than I do playing characters in these kinds of games. But I did noticed that it was the human characters that had staying power with old Jack here. So I guess I had to confess that what I had said in the previous episode, if all you make is humans, that's fine. You know, as long as you're making characters that make you happy, it's fine. Don't listen to the gatekeepers and the elitists and the jerks like me who say that you're boring or vanilla or basic. You know, who cares if you're basic, whatever. We need basic building blocks for existence. Why not be basic? Some people can be basic. You know what I mean? Just don't be a basic bitch. But so yeah, I had to apologize about that there. Now, what to expect in the future of Lost the Podcast plot, like, because that's what I did. No, the future of the Lost the Plot podcast. Well, I really couldn't tell you what to expect in the future, except to expect more, because I am challenging myself to maintain this project. If you know me, you know that maintaining consistency with a project is something I very much struggle with. I might, you know, I come out of the gate swinging, maybe I might be super passionate at the early, but like I said, with the whole ADHD need for novelty, when you're being consistent with the same project, that novelty wears off and it becomes something that's more discipline based. And like, you know, many other emotionally immature adults, I have a challenging time with discipline, which I'm trying to work on. And also, I enjoy the hell out of this, even during the times when I don't. But what can you expect from it? Probably more opinions. Probably nothing but opinions, but we'll see what happens, because like I said at the beginning of the show, we're following the evolution of creativity. I'm just kind of, you know, I'm letting my baby go out and play and seeing, you know, what toys they enjoy, you know, what they get themselves, you know, what do they grow into. Just let the baby go out and play and grow. So there may be like interviews at some point. There may be more monologues. There may be discussions on shows, probably will be. There may be discussions on books. We might do a book club fucking thing. You know, who knows? I've got some friends that have asked me and are involved with many online book club situations where they all, you know, they pick a book and then they get together in a Discord call or in person, which is harder to do when your friends are all over the world nowadays. But, you know, and they'll get in a Discord call and discuss the book that they've been reading, you know, and so we might do something like that at some point. We might even, hell, I've got some tabletop games coming up that I'm going to be part of, done digitally online, of course. We might include some of that. You know, I have enjoyed in the past other podcasts that have played role-playing fantasy games in their show, and I've, you know, I always wanted to try that out, so that just might happen at some point. So yeah, man, we're gonna have a lot of fun. It's gonna be a good year. It's gonna be a good time. But if you're not already, please subscribe to my channel that is hosting the Lost the Plot podcast at the moment at Jack_Kerrigan on YouTube, so I can get out of YouTube subscriber hell. No, I am very appreciative of all 31 of my subscribers. No, that's not the reason I do it. That can't be the reason you do it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm doing it right now because I have wanted to have a YouTube channel for about 15 years. And in fact, I started my YouTube channel back in 2012. I have uploaded things and deleted them over and over again in this cycle, in this almost Shea Gorith style cycle of like turning into the god of order and just killing everything and then starting over again and then uploading stuff and then killing everything and then starting over again, you know. And so like this time, with my rounds of uploads that started last year or the year before that, I was like, all right, everything has to stay up. It has to stay up. I can't do it again. My fucking channel says 14 videos, but channel created in 2012, man. It's 2026. Come on, man. What are you doing? What are you doing? But, so lately, if you've been following my channel, I've been, introducing some shorts featuring, a few characters from the film, was it 1971? The film Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, where it's predominantly involves characters Grandpa Joe and Charlie Bucket. And it's a kind of a Rick and Morty style bit between the two, where I do a bunch of improv sketches where I play Grandpa Joe and Charlie. It's basically Rick and Morty. But so far the sketches I have is Grandpa Joe is hungry, and then Grandpa Joe is constipated. And my process for these things is I have some time, I turn on the mic, and then, you know, I find my character voice. What about Charlie? Charlie, there we go. I'm Grandpa Joe. That's Charlie. Charlie, where's Charlie? I need Charlie. Charlie, I need a Wonka bar, Charlie. Go give me a Wonka bar right now, Charlie. I'm starving, Charlie. I don't want any of that water soup, Charlie. I want a Wonka bar. Yes, Grandpa Joe, I'll do anything you want. Shut the fuck up, Charlie, and go give me a Wonka bar. And so, like, I have a lot of fun with that. And I find that it really works. But so there's probably going to be more of that on my channel. You know, subscribe. This is turning into a large ad for my channel. And you know what? Since I'm the only one here doing the podcast, I could do that. But I'm not gonna keep doing that. But I do look forward to the future here. And like I said, not quite sure what's going to come in the future episodes or when future episodes are going to come, but they are coming. Yep, and it's going to be good. But for those of you listening right now, I really appreciate it. I hope that this is something that you enjoy. And, you know, if you've got thoughts, if you don't like it, if you do like it, leave me a comment, shoot me a message, you know, give me some of that interaction. But, you know, let me know what you think. You know, maybe, who knows, maybe your idea might be the seed of a spark, of a glimmer of what great things could come, you know, like who knows. But yeah. And I haven't really read anything beyond the I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream lately. Oh, that's not true. I'm actually working on a potential YouTube video because I want to try my hand at a video essay. And sneak peek to those of you guys that are fans of the channel. I am going to be doing this one on a wonderful graphic novel series of comic stories entitled Batman Vampire. So I've been rereading this in preparation while I get my stuff together, because it's got to be one of my favorite, if not my absolute favorite, series of Batman comic books. I mean, they're comic books. It's a 3-parter, and it's all together in a graphic novel called Batman Vampire, but it's 3 main parts. And it is, like it sounds like, it is what happens when Batman faces off against Dracula. Now, this is a standalone Tales of the Multiverse kind of thing. So, like, none of it has any implications on canon events, even though I think they have whipped out the vampire Batman from this universe in a couple other stories. Most notably, I think the Bat Metal series, I think he might have showed up like in a clip or some shit. But, you know, like it's his own universe, his own standing, but it's kind of the, not really the Adam West era. But it's you know, the earlier Batman's kind of era, like pre-Burton kind of stuff, but also probably pre-Adam West, like maybe Detective Comics. Yeah, no, it's like Detective Comics era Batman. And there's so much about it that is just phenomenal to me, from the subject matter being gothic horror to the art being insane, like a lot of sharp angles, long sharp angles, and inhuman like silhouettes and stuff, like just the way that they designed Batman himself when he's got his crazy cape draped over his arms. He looks very supernatural and inhuman. The proportions are very strange. I really enjoy the hell out of that. And the writing, very gothic horror, and the ending, they don't pull punches. They stay true to the theme of gothic horrors. But I'm going to be producing a video on this not too long from now, but I am rereading it. And if you get the chance to, I highly recommend you do. It's a very dark story, but in my opinion, a very Batman story. Now that's subjective to everybody, because everybody's got a different kind of Batman, and there's a kind of Batman for everybody. That's, I think, one of the reasons he really resonates as a character with pop culture, is because there is a variant of Batman for everyone, and everyone can make one. It's kind of the same with Spider-Man. You know, the whole multiverse thing really helps out. But personally, I find this to be great, the best, in my opinion, that I enjoy, because I'm a big fan of the gothic horror style, and I see Batman as a gothic element. Like, you can see all of those inspirations and shit, and it's not really gothic, but Arkham, the setting for a lot of Lovecraftian tales, is more cosmic horror, but like they incorporate that directly into the Arkham Asylum. You know what I mean? They named it after the city in the Lovecraft tales and shit. And Gotham, the goth is in the damn name. But, so that is something that I have been rereading. I'm not all the way done, but it's not to be confused with the Batman vs. Dracula Warner Brothers animation feature from The Batman TV show back in the aughts, which it's pretty good. It's not bad. It's pretty good. That's a Batman Dracula thing. This one has Dracula in it too. Batman has had other adventures with vampires and stories with vampires in the past, most notably the Deceased run most recently. But there have been, like back in Detective Comics, I think 351, there was an arc where he was going against a vampire and stuff, but none are quite like this. Like I said, there's part 1, part 2, and part 3. Part 1 is what you expect. It's the whole Batman Dracula. Part 2 is like, oh shit, consequences of the thing with Batman and Dracula. Part 3 is like, oh fuck, oh no, here we go, gothic horror all the fucking way, like straight up all the way, dark, awesome, amazing. There is a happy ending, I guess. Like, you know what I mean? From a certain perspective, I guess. Kind of the way that I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream has a happy ending. You know what I mean? Kind of like that. Like, from a certain perspective, from a certain viewpoint, perhaps. But, so if you haven't read that, I would recommend it. Sorry, I had to lean away to grab it. But it's written by Doug Moench, I think is how you pronounce the name, Moench. And you can find it generally online. You can purchase it there. But Batman Vampire, give that a read. Maybe I'll talk about it by the next show. Or maybe, who knows, maybe I'll get my button gear and that video will be up on my YouTube before you know it. However, I just saw Kevin again just logged into Steam while I'm recording this. So now I'm all anxious to go hang out and chit chat. But I am looking forward, like I've been saying, I'm looking forward to doing this next show. I've gone through all the things that I had planned for Lost the Plot podcast episode 2. So we're going to wrap it up here and kind of recap here. In this show, what we talked about was fucking rewind the show and listen to it. You don't need me to sit here and tell you what you just listened to. Come on. What are you thinking? Come on. But please subscribe to my channel. Subscribe to Kevin Again's channel. Hell, subscribe to Randomor's channel too. Hopefully I can get him on the show at some point. I will admit, though, making podcasts and recording them is substantially easier when people are in the same room rather than in a Discord call. So we'll see what happens with that shit. But look for the crew on YouTube, We Be the Crew, or join the Discord server, The Crew. We're awesome. We're looking for you. And I hope that all of you guys have a great rest of your time, rest of your days, nights, weeks, all right, until the next Lost the Plot podcast. And until then, I am your good friend, Jack Kerrigan, who's over here rambling out and just talking your ear off, but the whole time, I'm losing the plot. This is Lost the Plot podcast. Look forward to the next time. I've had a blast. You guys take care of yourselves. And clever sign-off line here.